This story revolves around an incident in which the author harshly criticized her mother-in-law, even resorting to profanity, causing the mother-in-law to experience breathing difficulties and be taken away by an ambulance. What could have happened? Let's find out together. Please like and subscribe our channel.
Hello, I'm a working mom in my early 40s. Before being a mother, I told the truth to my inhuman mother-in-law, which led her to be carried away in an ambulance. I don't understand why this was shocking to her, because everything I said was true. I can't comprehend how someone can be so shameless. How can she ask for money while mentioning the favor of finding and giving birth to her hurt son? I cursed and said harsh things to my mother-in-law, but I don't regret it. My husband told me that his parents divorced when he was in elementary school. After the divorce, his father remarried a few years later. So my husband was raised under his stepmother. The reason for their divorce was that my husband's birth mother was caught having an affair by his father. Moreover, she was having an affair with the guy next door. Since I don't want to call my husband's birth mother mother-in-law, I'll just call her his birth mother. After being caught having an affair with the neighbor, she left the house as it was. The father-in-law passed away a few years before we got married. After his passing, we lived just so-so with the mother-in-law. The father-in-law had worked at a company for a long time, and since he was an open member of the company, he must have been treated well and received a lot of stock dividends. He quit his job when he started getting sick, but he had accumulated quite a lot of money and assets by then. The mother-in-law didn't particularly covet it, but she legally split the father-in-law's property. She only divided the father-in-law's property to my husband, his younger brother, and sister-in-law to the extent that she had to legally divide. My husband's brothers were a bit disappointed with their mother. I don't know what it's like now, but back then, the deceased spouse received 50, and the remaining 50 was divided among the children. We got married a few years after the father-in-law passed away. My husband and I started with nothing. When our child was old enough to go to daycare, we had to work double jobs. Then, we got in touch with my husband's birth mother. I didn't want to receive help from someone who left home because of an affair, but my husband said that we should accept the help since she is his birth mother. So his birth mother came and took care of our child. I hated his birth mother because she did not want to take responsibility for the affair, and she did not want to hear the blame, and she left her young children and left the house, which made me think she was less than a bug. However, my husband tried to get along with his birth mother. He might have felt affectionate because she gave birth to him. His birth mother moved close to our house and lived that way, coming and going. She had a live-in boyfriend at that time who was younger than her. My husband and I called him Mr., but it was really unpleasant for our child to call him Grandpa. However, there was no suitable title, so we couldn't do anything about our child calling him Grandpa. She took care of our child from the time I went to work until I got off work. She sent the child to daycare, picked him up at the end of the day, and took care of him at our house until my husband and I got off work. Thanks to my husband's birth mother, we were able to work double jobs. She said she wouldn't take any money, but we gave her an allowance equivalent to babysitting costs. My husband thought it was too much, but I felt uneasy and wanted to give her as much as others did. About 2 years after I started working again, my job went well, and I started earning as much as my husband. Soon after, I started earning much more than him. Around the time our child was about to enter elementary school, my older sister was going to move abroad and said she would take our child with her. My brother-in-law had applied for a foreign assignment at his company, and he was going to stay abroad for over 5 years. They were also taking their children, and my sister said she would also take care of our child, and suggested we send him abroad for study. After discussing with my husband, we decided to do so. Our child was excited about living abroad with his aunt, without his parents, which was quite surprising. Our child adapted well to life abroad, and it seemed like he was having a great time living abroad, because my sister loved our child so much. Even after that, we kept in touch with my husband's birth mother. One day, my husband said he had something to discuss with me. We usually speak without hesitation, so I was a bit nervous when he said he had something to discuss. What my husband said was really ridiculous. His birth mother had asked him for living expenses. She said, "You two are earning, so it must be a bit more comfortable, right?" I was instantly angry. Living expenses? Could a mother who abandoned her children when they needed her ask for living expenses? This thought came first. We talked with my husband's birth mother. When we asked if the man she was living with didn't earn much, she said they earned enough for the two of them to live. Then, since her child is now abroad, shouldn't she look for a job? She said, "What kind of work can I do at this age?" At that time, I checked the age of my husband's birth mother. She was in her late 50s. When I asked how much she wanted, her answer was really surprising. She asked for at least 800,000 won. We didn't answer right there and came home to discuss with my husband. When I asked my husband, he said he could give that money to his mother or not, and he would leave it to my decision. Even when talking with my husband, I didn't make a decision for a few days. After a few days, his birth mother called every day, asking when we would start giving her money. I said I didn't know yet, and she suggested meeting again to talk. A few days later, my husband's birth mother and her man came to our house and talked again. But I only heard ridiculous things. My husband's birth mother said, "I gave birth to you, don't you know the favor?" I was so dumbfounded that I didn't know what to say, and I couldn't speak. I was just speechless out of surprise, but my husband's birth mother thought we had nothing to say and kept quiet, so she started talking nonsense. She kept repeating that she gave birth to him, and he should be grateful. And she finally said she needed to receive 1 million won. I was so angry that I almost cursed at her. And she said, "I took care of your child so much, don't you know how to be grateful?" At this point, my head started to hurt. The man living with my husband's birth mother was just sitting quietly next to her, making me wonder what his deal was. My husband's birth mother raised her voice, as if she was frustrated, and said, "Your father had a substantial fortune, didn't he? Didn't you receive something after he passed away? Don't you have any intention to share that money with me? Don't you think you're being too harsh to your mother?" At this point, I felt a sense of clarity. This woman was nothing more than a money-crazed woman. Not my mother-in-law, and not my husband's mother. I felt no reason to be dragged around by her anymore, so I guess I became calm. I said loudly, "Do you really think you have a right to covet your ex-husband's fortune? Considering you left home to have an affair with another man? You left your young children, who needed a mother's touch more than anything, because you preferred a man over them. How dare you act like a mother?" She then justified herself by saying that if she hadn't left home, she wouldn't have survived due to your father's character. I really wanted to slap her. So you left home because you didn't want to take responsibility for your affair. And you didn't want to be resented? Even if it meant being beaten to death, you should have apologized to your husband and taken care of your children. By leaving like that, you gave up being a mother, you gave up being human. But because you gave birth, you're asking for money? I shouted at her. According to what I heard, you received a property settlement when you divorced my father-in-law. So I told her to give that back. I shouted, "How can you do this while pretending to be human?" How do you feel about my husband suffering to take care of his siblings after you? Who is less than a human, left home when he was young? Not satisfied with hurting him once, are you trying to hurt my husband again? Anyone who hurts my husband, who has grown up in pain, won't be forgiven by me. I continued to say harsh things to my husband's birth mother. I said things that are a bit difficult to write here. And I also spoke to the man living with her. I asked him why he didn't stop her when she was talking nonsense. Seeing that he had no intention of stopping her, I asked if he was also coveting the fortune of her ex-husband. And I told them both that they were living disgusting lives. I even shouted that I wasn't sure if the reason they moved here was to covet my father-in-law's estate. And how could they do such beastly things? While I was yelling at the man, my husband's birth mother said she couldn't breathe. I thought she was pretending because she was at a disadvantage. But it seemed serious, and the man called 911. My husband's birth mother was taken away in an ambulance. I was angry and lost my temper, but when I calmed down, I was a bit worried. My husband's thoughts could be different from mine. But my husband was surprisingly calm. He told me about something his grandmother had told him when he was young. When you're about 30, your birth mother will contact you. At that time, you'll start making some money, so don't be swayed by her. Even if she took a share of your father's estate, do you think there will be anything left for her? He laughed as he told me this. He said he was happy to live without seeing his mother anymore, and I was so glad to hear that. A few days later, we got a call from the man living with my husband's birth mother. She had recovered well, and had been discharged from the hospital. My husband answered the call, and told him to tell his mother that he would live as a stranger from now on. It's been about 3 months now, and we haven't received any contact. My husband thanks me. He said I helped him make up his mind when he was torn. The affection of giving birth? The affection of raising? Honestly, I don't know anything about that. Did my husband's birth mother not feel happy when she saw her children at their cutest age? How could she think of asking for money after leaving her children, who desperately needed their mother's care, to have an affair? Whether that woman is a human. I'm still angry. Some people may criticize me for cutting off ties. But I believe I protected my husband, who has been hurt, so honestly, I have no regrets no matter what anyone says.
It seems like her husband must have saved a country in his past life, considering he has such a wonderful spouse. Yes, I believe it's an important role of a spouse to provide guidance when their partner is struggling to find their footing. What are your thoughts on this?